Hello and welcome to Talking Reds, a Nottingham Forest podcast hosted by myself, Greg Oram, and that fellow Forest fanatic from across the Atlantic, Richard Spray. Good morning, Richard. How are you doing over in Oklahoma?
Oh, I just love how you keep surfacing my childhood memories. This is amazing. Yeah, I'm doing good. Doing really good. Thank you.
All of a sudden, my earphones have decided to completely disappear on me. So I'm not sure if you can hear me. I can't hear you at the moment. So I'm going to speak and then I will hopefully get my earphones sorted out so I can hear everything. What I'll continue by saying is that Premier League football is back, and with trips to the Emirates, the Etihad and Old Trafford coming up within the next 5 matches, we enter a crucial phase of the season for Nottingham Forest, as we will surely see if the wonderful start will be built on or lent on ahead of the busy festive period. Can Forest get back underway against Arsenal with at least a point on the road to keep the unbeaten away record this season intact? And how much will the air miles affect the likes of Chris Wood and Murillo as they return from international duty? Back with Richard and I, we welcome Raf, the Random Pundit, and the stat man, Danscape. I'm a scat man. Yeah, you see, I've got Paul's sorted out with his little theme. I've got Dan sorted out his little theme. I'm working on one for Raf. It's all going to evolve organically over time. So nice. There we go. How are you doing, guys?
Good, thank you. Delighted to be back after the international abyss.
Still unable to hear anything. I'm going to go to that there. Can you guys just say that again for me?
Yeah. Delighted to be here after the international break, having to fill the time with DIY and stuff. So
thank you very much. You know what? StreamYard has a funny habit of like just switching off your settings sometimes. So it decided to turn off the Bluetooth connection. But there we go. Raf, how are you?
I'm well, thanks, buddy. Well. Pleased for football to come back and not having to watch games in the vain hope that Morgan Gibbs-White might play 5 minutes of it. But yeah.
I know, that was tragic. Don't forget to join in with us in the chat. Drop your comments. If you don't say hi, then we don't know you're here. And of course, you know we like to give shout outs. Of course, maybe you're listening to this later on Apple or Spotify with your headphones on, de-icing the car perhaps. We thank you very much for tuning in and joining us too. We are very much at the very end of the process of our Talking Reds giveaway. We are going to announce on Sunday, when we come in for the post-match review show, the winner. And so you still got time to enter the Talking Reds giveaway. You've got to subscribe to this channel, head over to X and go to our pinned post where you'll see some very simple instructions on how to enter. So if you want to be in with a chance of winning a pre-match jersey or a lovely board hamper of cheese from the Cheese Trader, then please do enter the Talking Reds giveaway. The instructions and all the rest of it's going across the bottom of the screen. Don't forget as well, liking and subscribing is a thing for podcasters. So we hope you might jump on board, subscribe, and like the video. It helps us out no end. We've stalled a little bit about the 838 mark, and we even lost one yesterday. Went back down to 837. Yes, we are having daily looks at our subscribers. We're trying to get that 1,000 mark up, folks. It's a real thing. Okay, enough of all that. Let's get on with the episode. We want to talk about Forest travelling to Arsenal on Saturday. Richard, what are your general thoughts on the match ahead?
We played them pretty tight most in previous years, right? So we've won away previously. So we know we're capable, and this is with a better squad, and I think we're performing better comprehensively as a team. So you got to feel confident going into this. Clearly, after the Newcastle match, it was disappointing. We didn't play up to our level that we've been playing it all year long. And so hopefully we're a little bit rejuvenated, hopefully a little bit healthier with players like Morgan Gibbs-White, Elliot Anderson, and so forth. So we come in with a lot more confidence, because when we play with confidence, when we play with fearlessness, I think we're a much better side versus how we kind of played against Newcastle, where we just sort of sat back, absorbed a lot of pressure, let them dictate the flow of play throughout the match, and we just can't do that. We can't. We're in the top 5 of the Premier League right now. I'm not saying we'll ultimately end up there, but we've got to act like a team in the top 5, and we've got to not be fearful of what Arsenal's going to bring. They've obviously got Martin Odegaard back, which is a big deal, because their goal difference last year at this time was 14. It's 6 this season. They're at 19 points versus 24. So they're not playing quite as well, but I think that has a lot to do with Odegaard being out and injured, now coming back. They're going to be supremely confident with him kind of orchestrating things from the middle.
What about you, Raf?
Feel confident.
Thanks, Richard. What about you, Raf? How are you feeling about this one?
I just want us to have a fair roll of the dice. I'm more interested in the performance than the actual result. And I say that because even though I think I predicted this to be us upsetting the apple cart and actually winning this game in our predictor show that we did, I actually think this is going to be our toughest game of the season to date. And potentially this is a very wounded Arsenal that have got all their players other than Ben White back. And they need to win this game. They need to, otherwise they're pretty much out of the title race. And I think that's a really dangerous situation for us to go into. I'd happily take a point, but for me, it's us playing really, really, really well and taking that performance into the next fixture is the key thing for me.
Okay. So what about you, Dan? I mean, is the performance more important than the result for this one, do you reckon?
It's definitely one of those games where it's not like a free hit, but the result's not going to define our season either way. So I don't expect us to necessarily have a great performance either in terms of obviously on the ball possession, controlling the game. So it's about, for me, that bounce back of showing that we are back where we were before the second half against Newcastle, when we suddenly conceded, 3 goals out of nowhere. So let's go back to showing that we're that resilient team that's going to get through most of that game looking very solid, restricting a very good team to very few chances, and then put our game plan in place of trying to nick it.
So I've been kind of thinking over the international break about the impact that Newcastle defeat might have on the team and the squad. And there's been lots of talk around Forest now that we found ourselves momentarily in 3rd position, finishing the game week in 5th, which is still an astonishingly good achievement for us based on where we've been, what we've been through. But the talk was very much about how good Chris Wood's been because he's scoring all these goals. Nuno won Manager of the Month. Matt Sales' improvement has been highlighted. All of a sudden, Forest are in that conversation. I look at Forest, aren't they doing well? So I guess the reason why I was thinking about that defeat, Richard, was, there we are, going ahead in the match with Murillo getting his first goal. The game plan seems to be going well, but then we really were kind of pulled apart in that second half. Did the international break come at the wrong time? I guess I was wondering. We had players going away, travelling as well. We'll talk about that in a moment. But going into Arsenal, a really tough game. If we were to lose this one and not sort of get ourselves back into a place that we have been so far, could that potentially be the start of a poor spell that sees us struggling to pick up wins, struggling to pick up points, especially with the batch of fixtures ahead? I know we've got Ipswich at home to look forward to, and I don't mean that as in I'm looking forward to it because it's a guaranteed 3 points. I don't believe that, but certainly the phrase is winnable, which we don't like to use too much, but Ipswich at home has to be a game that you target for 3 points. But away trips to Manchester United and Manchester City within 3 days of each other. So I'm worried about this game because I feel like we do need to get ourselves back onto an even keel. Did the international break come at the wrong time? And how dangerous is this fixture for Forest? If Raf's talking about the performance possibly being more important than the result, but a point at least is surely going to give us that confidence back, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, anytime you can take a point away, which of course, as we kind of talked offline, we know we've been doing that really well. We're the only team, what you said, one or two that are undefeated away at this point in the Premier League. So versus what we've been in the past, where we've struggled mightily in that area. So clearly, we have the capability. I sort of vacillate between this sort of. I don't want to see us sit back. I don't want to see us allow them to determine how this match is going to go. I mean, by virtue of who they are and how well they're coached and the kind of talent that they field week in and week out, we know we're at I wouldn't say at a disadvantage when it comes to all of that, but I would say that they've certainly had the history and they've been a far better side over the last 3 years that we've been in the Premier League. But at the same time, it feels different this year. And I think the international break actually comes at a good time because we've had players that have had some knocks. We're concerned about how well that they're going to be able to perform when they're trying to play through injuries. And so you want to see some return to that synergy, that cohesion that we've seen prior to Newcastle. I agree with you. The first half was decent, but then the second half, they completely dominated that. And that was the lowest XG we've had all season. Look at the result. Because we weren't getting into the box, we weren't getting shots off, we weren't stressing that back line or that back third of the opposing team. And we've done that in other matches. And when we've done that, we've seen the result of that. So I agree that the performance matters because we want to be able to show we're not just going to, again, drift into that same sort of Fulham-esque, like Newcastle-esque type performance. And you don't want to lose 2 matches in a row. You don't want to start a streak. So for me, I probably drift more towards the results being more important. And I think we're going to be a healthier team coming out of the break than we were going into it.
I've been a big vocal champion of the likes of Milenkovic coming into the club and the impact he's made. Obviously, we're not going to win every game. We know that. And clearly we're going to lose games. You know, the thing that I think we've almost forgotten is that this season, after 10, 11 games or whatever it is now, having only just 2 defeats, we've gotten used to now looking at a team that can cope in the Premier League, that can match up well against top teams and can actually go into battle. So, Raf, you talked about the performance possibly being more important than the result. And I see where you're coming from. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like you're trying to say, look, if we can still put in a battling performance, it shows all the attributes that we've shown this season, but we still come away with a 2-1 or defeat or a 1-0 defeat, then, you know, we dust ourselves down and we see the positives. Is that really what you're trying to say? Is that where you're at? I mean, clearly, if we come away with a 5-0 defeat, it's going to be a tough one, right?
Correct. It's 2-factored. It's one is the last half of football that we played was not good. And we need to get back to pundits completely flipping their opinion of us pre-season to where they were now, with even Lineker falling over himself to applaud what we're doing, which is bizarre territory to be on, but it was actually brilliant. But for me, it's also, if we have a really good performance, it means that we've learned. If we think about the halves of football that have been where we have not been in control of the game, it was ignoring Fulham, which was just a tactical disaster from start to finish. But if you take the first half of Leicester and we take the second half of Newcastle, what do those things have in common? We completely lost the midfield. We were overrun in midfield. And that was something that, if you have a look at Arsenal, we really could get in problems. They have, a 3-person midfield, of which you've got 2 enforcers and a crazy creator that sits within there. But they also have their forward line that don't mind dropping back into midfield, creating boxes and creating an overload. This is exactly when things went Pete Tong in the first half of Leicester and in the second half of Newcastle. So we need to preempt that. And I'd like to see the tactical evolution of us knowing these things are going to happen and be set up to counter that. And when we've done that really well, as much as I'm not a fan of Anderson and Dominguez being on the wings instead of, there is a must for 65 minutes to absorb. Arsenal will go into panic mode with their fans on their back if they have not scored within 65 minutes. And that is when we strike. And I'm very much up for a game plan like that. Let's trust in Nuno. Other than those blips, he has got it spot on with very different strategies for each game. And I'm expecting something not 4-2-3-1, 2 wingers. I'm expecting something out of his playbook for this.
Dan, are we maybe thinking that, you know, it's going to be a similar episode as to this game as what we had against Liverpool away? A shake-up in personnel. Let's talk team selection. We've gone unchanged in the last 3, I think it is, with Dominguez featuring alongside Yates. And obviously we had Morgan out because of suspension and then injury and so on. So let's think about shape. Let's think about selection. Let's think about Nuno's approach. What are you thinking, Dan? Have you got any ideas as to how this might be approached by the manager?
Well, just stepping back in terms of sort of this game and this result, I think for me, in terms of where we're at in the season, we've kind of put relegation to bed, so we sort of can just enjoy every game. Like reality is, you know, there's no way we get relegated from here, and clip that, whatever. But we can kind of go into all these games and enjoy them. But that doesn't mean we go into them all and say, you know, let's just go for it and go gung-ho. We still play the way we play. We've got our success so far from taking teams to kind of 60, 70 minutes at 0-0, bringing on our subs or changing the game or nicking the goal, and then being able to see out the last 20 minutes, half an hour. That's how we've got to where we are in the league. We haven't always gone and dominated teams. We've started to do that at home and, you know, against the lesser teams, but we can still play our way, which potentially means, yes, you tweak the team and you look at their threats and you say, right, which of our players can deal with that better? Which areas of the field do we kind of need to bulk up? And so I think we could see a wide position for Anderson if he's fit, or Dominguez well, it's probably most likely Anderson, because I think Dominguez and Yates continues as that central midfield pair. So it might be that we see one of Elanga, Hudson-Odoi drop out and Anderson come into a wide position there. Because let's face it, their biggest threat is Saka, and he's going to play on the right. So on that side, is it a case of playing Moreno and Hudson-Odoi is just leaving them too much opportunity in an attacking sense to exploit there? And do we put Anderson onto that left wing, who's going to do a better job defensively than Hudson-Odoi?
So are you still thinking that we go with a 4-2-3-1 type shape? Or do you think maybe there might be room for a 4-3-3 on this?
I think like Liverpool, it's almost a 4-4-1, but, you know, a variety of players push on to kind of put that extra little bit of pressure up alongside Chris Wood. And Chris Wood almost drops deeper than Gibbs-White at times. You know, that front 3 or 4 becomes very fluid, but completely out of possession. When we're dropping deeper and deeper, it becomes effectively a 4-4-1, you know, as a starting point. And then it's just the players deciding, and this is where Nuno has to work on his, you know, on the training pitches, they work out when to press, who presses on which side, filling in the gaps and so on.
4-4-1 means really that we're going to be kind of setting up in the midfield to effectively soak pressure up and combat the midfield. How do you see it, Richard? I mean, what kind of personnel would you like to bring in for this one?
Yeah, it's difficult because to the guy's point, I mean, we know where we've, Raf mentioned it, we know where we've made mistakes in the past. I mean, like you said, take out the Fulham match because that was a complete mess, but invariably, I don't know, my mind seems to drift towards something that, you know, a movie that I love is called Miracle, and it's about the 1980 U.S. hockey team. And one of the things that he says in that is, you know, everyone fears this Russian team who's just so talented and so capable and just dominates every game that they play. But he says, we're going to take their game to them. And for some reason in my head, I feel like that's how we need to approach this. And we need to do it in a way where we don't try to switch all these things up and to try to accomplish that. I don't want to throw out tactics and throw out the right formation to manage certain areas of the pitch. But in my mind, I feel like we need to have that attacking mentality, because when we did that in that latter part against Chelsea, they were shell-shocked by what we were doing. And to Raf's statement earlier, if you can get into their head early enough, take them, you know, win that psychological battle by putting them off their game in some capacity. In my mind, that bodes well to us being able to win this match, similar to what we did against Liverpool. So I would want to keep the same formation as we had it, but I can definitely see the value of what you're putting on the screen right now, because you have a nice balance, right? You've got the creativity and the attacking prowess of Gibbs White. You've got Woody up top per usual, but then you've got a real strong sort of blend of defensive / attacking in that 4 midfield. So this actually looks pretty nice. I think this might be a great option for us.
I mean,
What I'd say with
Brett
this
and-
is, sorry, go on.
I
I was just going to say
Brett
it's almost like you are sacrificing that attacking threat, but you're trying to play the 90 minutes by saying, let's get to 60 with this team, and let's condense the game down to a 30-minute shootout. Then, when we've got some of our better attacking players on.
Yeah, so I was just going to reference Pat Brett's comment where he's talking about filling the midfield up, go to the Liverpool formation, bring on the wingers in the latter stages in a sort of a 4-4-1-1, which is what you were talking about. I mean, I've tweaked it around while you were talking. So for those watching, I've got on the screen the FOT mob with the back four that we know of: Moreno, Murillo, Milenkovic, and Aina, and then across the midfield, Anderson with Ward-Prowse coming in, Yates and Dominguez, with Gibbs White sitting in front of those behind a Chris Wood. I mean, Raf, how are we going to approach this in your view? For me, I've put that team on there as I think this is possibly going to be the way we start the game, with the chance to bring wingers on again like we did. But then again, is that a routine, a tactic that we've done before that perhaps they're going to be ready for? Or can you foresee Nuno doing something completely different?
So for me, I think there is a base minimum of having 3 in midfield to man for man against Rice, Partey, and Odegaard. There needs to be, and I would have Yates on Odegaard to rile him up. I don't think Odegaard's fully 100% fit, which will help Yates's edge. But I think Yates on Rice, they're both wind-up merchants, and that won't end well, I don't think. So I think you put Rice on Odegaard, like he neutralised McAllister, like he has in other games as well. And if you neutralise Odegaard, then we've won. That we're halfway to winning the battle. I think that's the key. We have 3 people in midfield. I do think the problem with that 4 across there was there's no actual pace to break very much out from there, which is why I think you have 3 in midfield. You have then Gibbs White as the 10, and I think you probably have Callum Hudson-Odoi as your other out creativity. Stats wise, Callum Hudson-Odoi has greater creativity than Morgan Gibbs White this season, right? It's just fact. And per 90 minutes. And we really struggle when Callum is not on the pitch to be able to create as much as we do. And so I think we have those 2 that are still behind Wood, a midfield 3, and then a back 4. There is a hidden other option, which I saw Pete Blackburn put up, which is what we deployed back in the day against the top 6, which was a back 3 with wing backs. The upside of that is you can still have your 2 in midfield. You're going to have your 3 up top, and you can have your wing backs make 4 in midfield. The problem is because they're wing backs, they're not naturally in midfield. And when they're being wing backs, you still just have your 2 in midfield, and you're going to get dominated. And you will find more than often than not, if you don't have those full numbers in midfield, you're going to have your Yates or your Dominguez's pulled off to deal with the threats on the wings, potentially with their fullbacks bombing on. And then you get depleted numbers in midfield. So I think you need a minimum of 3 in the midfield. And for me, it's probably then your 4-3-2-1, but not quite Christmas tree. You're not playing 2 10s. You still have Callum slightly off on the side.
Yeah, I mean, I've just fiddled around again for those listening with a back 3 of Murillo, Milenkovic, and Morato coming in. Moreno, Aina as wing backs. Yates, Dominguez, Ward-Prowse in the midfield with Gibbs, White, and Wood up top. I mean, we talk about formation every time. There are options, and we can sit here all day and go through multitude of formations, multitude of players in different positions, and still not get it right. So I guess, obviously to say again, we're going to have to wait to see what Nuno does. But thinking about specific people rather than specific formations then. Morgan Gibbs-White away with England gets 15 minutes off the bench in the first game, comes on and selects, comes on and sets up the third goal. And I'm thinking he's going to get minutes against Ireland, doesn't get any. He looked sharp when he came on. He looked like he was ready for it. But are we still getting into that habit of Morgan Gibbs-White has to play? Is it, Richard, a bit of a habit? Or now that we've seen him coming off the bench or not featuring at all, and Elliot Anderson playing, does the conversation now have to evolve where Gibbs-White is not an automatic pick, and we have to really just view him as a player the same as everybody else? I mean, I know you're his biggest fan, but is Morgan Gibbs-White an automatic pick still?
I mean, in relation to, yes, I'm going to say yes, absolutely. But I think it's just based off of what we've seen throughout the years that he's been in the team. And virtually, I mean, yes, Elliot Anderson is an incredibly talented footballer. There's no question about that. At some point, he could, I'm saying something somewhat semi-blasphemous in my own head because I love Morgan Gibbs-White, as you said. But maybe Eddie Anderson becomes a more well-rounded player at some point than Morgan Gibbs-White. I don't know that yet. But by virtue of how much time he's logged, the experience he has, the way that he can change a game in terms of, I mean, look at that pass to Moreno, opened up that first goal to Chris Wood against, my brain just went blank. It wasn't Leicester. Forgive me. West Ham. So
West Ham.
That kind of moment happens because of the type of player he is. And so you can't take that off the pitch and assume that everything is going to function the same way. I just don't see him as being a guy that you can bring off the bench. If he's not fully fit for some reason, okay. But if he is, he has to be there because the way that he can infuse that energy and that will and that desire and that work rate and creativity all sort of amalgamated in him as a player, and then bringing that out because we need that. We need creativity, and not that Anderson lacks any of that, but I think Morgan at this point in his career is more capable of that than I think Anderson is.
Murillo went off with Brazil for the first time, didn't feature. Chris Wood went off and did some air miles for certain, going to New Zealand, scored 5 goals in 2 matches. I mean, Raf, with those 2 players putting in that kind of distance in terms of journey, could that have an effect on how they play? I mean, it doesn't seem to have done so previously, but we're getting into the sort of November part of the season where the matches are coming thick and fast. How much would that have an impact on them, that travelling?
Well, I think it's more of it is jet lag and time difference because they both have a really large difference. I'm less worried about Murillo because like defenders and the amount of shift they need to put in, although he puts in slightly more as a defender than others. I just never doubt Wood. Everyone always doubts him and he always produces. So until I see otherwise, I have no concerns about Wood. He's an absolute god and hero. And just leave him be, and he will do what Wood does. And it can't hurt scoring 5 goals. You suddenly get back on a plane, you scored 5 goals, and you're like, right, bring me my next game. I'm going to bang some more in. So I generally don't think that's of a concern. And then you look at the rest of our team, and Hudson-Odoi, Alanga, Morgan Gibbs-White needed the minutes and got a few minutes and did some intense training, which is what he needed. Our entire midfield didn't go anywhere. They all got to rest. I think Milenkovic just needs to keep grinding and just dominating, which what he did when he went away and grinding and dominating. Yeah, but he just literally just defeats the will of the opposition of just what he does. And I think we are in much better position than the majority of other teams off this international break.
Dan, as ever, you put together some slides for us as we want to have a look at Forest against Arsenal in some, head-to-head type stats. So you've come up with this one, which is just the basic, not the basic, but the general Arsenal v Forest head-to-head. Take us through this one.
Yeah, just quickly on international break. I think we've won the last 2 games straight after the international break, so probably not one for us to worry about so far. Yes, let's hope so. So yeah, this is comparing Arsenal v Forest in terms of the their kind of percentile in the Premier League across these stats so far this season. So the bigger the bar going towards the middle, the better the team is at that particular aspect, and the further away the bar is from the middle, the worse they are. So in terms of goal scoring, Arsenal are kind of just into that top half of a team in terms of the number of goals they score, whereas we're a bottom half team in terms of goals scored. Goals against, you'll see that both teams are just better defensively this season than they are going forward by quite a way. Both teams are up there in terms of goals against, as we know with Forest's record. In terms of goals home and away, then actually both teams are quite. Arsenal are strong at scoring goals at home, and we're strong at scoring goals away compared to other teams. So it suggests that there is going to be a bit of goal mouth action in the game, despite both teams being solid defensively, again, as you can see with the next stats there below. And it's reflected in the XG as well. That just confirms, again, both teams are better defensively than offensively so far this season. Possession-wise, Arsenal are kind of an average team in terms of possession. They don't dominate possession, but compared to us, we are right down the bottom in terms of actually holding on to the ball and wanting to pass the ball around. Number of shots, and this is where it gets a little bit interesting, is kind of the number of shots and the quality of shots. So we are in the top half in terms of the number of shots we have in a game. Arsenal are actually in the bottom half in terms of the number of shots they have, which is perhaps surprising. When you look at the quality of the shots they're having, they are creating kind of those elite chances. So they're in that top 20%. Every shot they have, albeit less of them, tends to be a much higher quality chance than ours, which is actually one of the lower ones in the league. So we're potentially having a few too many pot shots from too far out, which is confirmed by the average shot distance below on that one. So they are shooting the closest to goal of anyone in the league on average, and we're actually shooting about as far away as anybody else in the league when we take our shots. And obviously, in theory, the closer you are to goal, the more likely you are to score. And then a couple of other interesting ones just picked up. So errors, Arsenal actually doing very badly for errors. I think they're second bottom in terms of the number of errors leading to shots so far this season. So they're making mistakes, and David Raya's made a few himself, which is always an opportunity. And we're actually in the top, we're in that top 15% of the league for not making errors this season, which I think has been key, because when you think about winning games in tight margins, 1-0 or getting a draw or 1-1, it can come down to not making the errors as much as it can for everything else that you do in a game. And then I suppose the other one to point out on this is tackles in attacking third. I think that indicates that this is a slightly different game to that Liverpool away game, because Arsenal are very high up in terms of putting teams under pressure in their own defensive third, trying to win the ball off them in that area. And we actually do get tackled quite a lot in that area when we play. So there's a bit of a challenge there, whereas I think Liverpool sit off a little bit more in their style of play. So a bit different there in terms of we'll have to play out of tight areas at the back. And then the subs one's just on there for just to show that we use lots of subs and we give our subs lots of minutes, and Arsenal actually don't. Arsenal rarely use subs and rarely give them minutes. So in terms of changing the game late on, which could potentially come to on the next slide, it's kind of like we that's our game plan. Our game plan is to use the subs, and Arsenal's isn't really.
Well, I've got shot creating actions.
They'll have to change that. They've got a Champions League game like midweek
Yeah.
after us, and they're going to have to change it up, which is not exactly their normal rhythm, which does suit us a bit, I think.
I got the shot creating actions one next for you to quickly tell us about, Danscape.
Yeah, so this is the danger men for both teams, which touches on what Raf was saying earlier, that Hudson-Odoi currently tops our list in terms of the player involved in the most shots that we've had this season. And Saka, for them, is quite a way their most creative player and most impactful player so far. So I think Moreno's got his job to do again, like he did against Salah when we were at Liverpool. And I think that's why you potentially look at how you defend on that side of the pitch. Odegaard, despite not playing that much, when he does play, he's the second most influential player on the pitch for them. And then Rice, again, we don't know if he's fit or not, whether he's going to play in this one, but he's up there from a slightly deeper role. So yeah, it's just to highlight a few of their threats, which are pretty obvious, to be honest, in terms of what we know.
Forest,
Greg, I wasn't making up stats.
Right, I never for 1 second imagined that you would have been. Don't worry about that. That's why we invite you back. So Forest have taken the lead so many times in their games, and in fact, no other team has been behind in matches less than Forest this season. So an interesting slide you've done, Dan, is that the minute when Forest take the lead.
Yeah, and how that impacts the result, because I think everyone's aware of that, the stat that we haven't been behind a lot in the league compared to others, like say the most or wherever it is now. But I think what's interesting in the games we've won, basically we tend to struggle when we score early. That tends to be the pattern, and I think that's applied to last three, the other 2 seasons in the Premier League as well. It's almost like when we score early, that's where we don't have that plan B, knowing quite what to do. So when we're talking about formation earlier, I'm saying it's almost like you just want a formation that's going to get you to 60 or 70 minutes, as you can see on this chart. So in terms of when we take the lead, against Southampton, we took the lead in the 70th minute and won. Against Liverpool, we took the lead in the 72nd minute and won. Against Palace, it took till the 65th minute and we won. Leicester, if you ignore the first half where it finished 1-1 and we were only ahead for like 5-10 minutes, it was the 47th minute, so it's still into the second half where we took the lead and then we saw it out. West Ham's the only anomaly there in that we took the lead early, and potentially because of that red card and everything, we saw out our longest sort of period ahead of the game so far. Whereas when you consider Wolves, we took the lead after 10 minutes and then couldn't, we conceded, and then that sort of killed the game. Brighton, we went ahead early on, but we got pegged back. Newcastle, obviously, we took the lead the other week, 21st minute, but then struggled to see out the rest of the game with that plan B.
So I kind of suppose that links into the holding on for a win slide you've done.
Yeah. So this is showing how long can we hold on for a win so far this season, and the average there is kind of 30 minutes, probably something like that, half an hour, 35 minutes. And again, that's what's thinking in my brain in terms of an approach for this game is like, if you try and play Arsenal at our best and their best for 90 minutes in how we want to play and how they want to play, we haven't necessarily demonstrated yet that we can see that out for 90 minutes. But if we can condense the game down and say, right, let's get to that 60, 70 minute mark within a goal or 0-0, then we've kind of got that ability to change the game and see it out. And it's just numbers and theories. But I think that is how we've been this season. We haven't generally gone into a game, gone 2-0 up and just seen it out, apart from that West Ham game.
So in a nutshell, let's score first. Don't do it too early. Maybe in the second half with about 25 minutes to go. Hold on against Arsenal for a cheeky 1-0 away win. Score predictions, please. Richard, what are you saying?
I'm gonna go 2-2. I think we've been scoring goals away, as I think Raf and Dan have talked about, and I'm gonna go with an Elanga goal in this match. I think he comes on if we end up seeing a formation where he's on the bench, comes on, stresses that back line and gets behind him and scores and starts to turn the corner. Hopefully, I keep waiting for that to happen, for him to kind of become the Elanga of the first half of last season. But I'm gonna say 2-2.
Raf, over to you. I think you had this one down in our preseason predictions as something in particular. So where are you going now? How are you feeling now? How are you feeling now?
I'm hoping for 1-1. I generally have a feeling Arsenal will pip this 1-2-1 though. But whenever I predict the fact we lose, we then don't. So I'm taking one for the team by saying we're going to lose 2-1.
Okay. Danscape.
I have no idea. I literally have no idea. I feel like they're like Raf's alluded to earlier, they're going to be well up for this. They need to win this game to keep any kind of title challenge going. But we're aware of that. We know how to deal with that. So I think the international break suits us. I think we're going to stronger. So I think we can a 1-1 draw.
1-1 draw for Dan. I'm going to say a 2-1 win for Forest. I believe that a win is well within our grasp. We've shown that this season. I believe that this team has the bounce back ability that we've not had in the past. Chris Wood back on the score sheet. It's going to be 1-1 into the dying minutes, and Jota Silva is going to come off the bench, and he is going to score the winner against Arsenal on Saturday. Oh, yes, you've heard it here first. Okay, it's just time for a quick break. So we're going to play the Cheese Trader ad. It's featuring the Yorkshireman who did a recent review. So have a listen to what he had to say about our brilliant friend Stu Freestone, the Cheese Trader. If you're watching, then you get to see the lovely, delightful toasted cheese.
This York shop is a cheese lover's paradise. The Cheese Trader is home to an array of fine British cheeses, not only selling it but offering an epic cheesy street food menu too. Guests can choose from a main dish and then select all the different types of cheese they'd like on top, alongside an array of other toppings. We tried their loaded fries and posh cheese toasties, both of which were absolutely smothered in gorgeous melted cheddar. We even chose a whole camembert to top our fries, which was so tasty, like a cheesy salt and pepper dish. The posh cheese on toast was some of the best toast we've ever had, with so many amazing flavours to it that perfectly paired with the cheese, tucked away just off Grape Lane. This is the perfect spot for a great lunch.
There we go. The fantastic Cheese Trader in York. Stu Freestone sponsors our show. He's a Forest fan. Give him a shout. You can get your discount, remember, if you quote Talking Reds. All the information is in the bio to this episode on YouTube. Okay. So, you know what it's like here at Talking Reds. You know that we like to try and do things a little bit differently. We talk about Forest. That's what we're here for. But we also like to try and include the occasional segment with a difference. So, for the first time, I'm introducing this.
This is a tasty burger.
Yes. What, in your opinion, is the best burger? So I'm going to go around the team and I'm going to ask them, what is, in your opinion, your favorite or your best burger? So I'm looking for restaurant and I'm looking for specific burger from their menu. So it could be a McDonald's Big Mac or it could be a Burger King Whopper, for example. I mean, the list is endless. It could be something that we haven't heard of. It could be, you know what, the best burger is the kebab house at the end of my road, and this guy does this X, Y, and Z. So I want to know from you, what is your best burger? I'm going to come to Danscape first. What's your favorite burger, Danscape?
I'm struggling to think of a specific.
It might even be a chicken burger. It doesn't have to be. It could be any kind of burger.
I pretty much do like any kind of burger, to be honest. So whatever you put in it, I will eat it. And generally, I'm trying to pick a specific place. It would be one of these hipster, slightly edgy burger places where they come up with some weird name for the burger. There's a couple local to me that I would definitely recommend if you're in Sheffield. One's called Twisted Burger Company, and can't remember the name of the other one. But yeah, basically have bacon on it. Like it doesn't matter whether it's chicken or a beef burger, but with bacon on, it's going to taste brilliant. And cheese, I could take it or leave it. So basically, a beef burger with bacon and a bit of like barbecue sauce or spicy barbecue sauce, and then I'm happy.
So you're being quite generalistic. You're building your burger.
I know.
Doesn't matter where you're going. Yeah. That's fine. That's fair enough. Okay, so
I don't eat enough burgers to give you a very specific one, but I will eat any burger. So
okay, Mr. Random Pundit, for today's random question about burgers, over to you.
So if I was to take Dan's approach, if I'm going to build it, like if you go to a Five Guys, other outlets are available to build your own burgers, then it would be
other outlets don't require a mortgage, by the way.
It would basically have cheese, it would have jalapenos, it would have pickles, and it would probably have onions in it as kind of a basis. But if I'm picking a set burger off a menu from somewhere, I can't look past a Big Mac from McDonald's, but not a large Big Mac where the ratios are all wrong because you've got 4 patties and all this other thing going on. It's the original, non-messed around with Big Mac.
Fantastic. Okay. Ricardo over in Oklahoma. This kind of question might be right up your street. So I know we like a burger, don't we, sir? What are you saying?
We do. As much as I have an aversion to pretty much all things Texas, sans Brucey, I would say that Hop Dottie Burger in Texas, they had one out in Phoenix, Arizona, in Scottsdale, and it was incredible. And I'll tell you why. Firstly, they bake their own bread in-house. They grind their own meat in-house. They make their own milkshakes. They literally, it's like farm to table, all of their ingredients. But they have a burger called the Magic Shroom, which is basically goat cheese, pesto, mushrooms, and 100% Angus beef. And it is absolutely incredible because, again, they're grinding it and then it's going right on the grill. So you really cannot get better quality and comprehensively better ingredients in this place. And they've got a few of them around. Bruce is probably familiar with this because it started in Austin, Texas, but there's I think 3 or 4 of them in Dallas now. It's really exploded. To Dan's point, this sort of like hipster burger place, but it is amazing. So, and they have this maple bacon milkshake, which is divine. Sounds odd, but it is absolutely divine.
No. Well, thank you very much, guys.
This is a tasty burger.
We'll have more tasty burger selections on another episode in the future. But thanks very much for involving yourselves with that. Maybe in the comments you can let us know what your favourite burger is. It's been a bit quiet out there today. I know that we did have a few people joining us. If Oliver's still with us, how you doing, Oliver? Co-host of the Forest Women Fancast. Don't forget to give them a shout or check them out. Some great work from Holly and Oliver over on the Forest Women Fancast. Also, Ben Dorr on tour. How you doing, Ben? He's joined us as well. I mentioned Pat Brett with us. If you are watching along, then please do say hello in the comments as well. Don't forget, if you can like and subscribe this episode and the channel, it will do us endless favors. Thank you very much for that. The Forest women are back on top of the league. They had a 4-0 victory at home to Stoke on Sunday. So they're back on top. They're riding high. Carly Davis just signed a brand new contract as well. So the women's team really making a mark. We've talked about them previously, but we'll have a quick chat about the women's team. Raf, I know that you follow them quite closely as well. I think we all do now as well. So promotion to the next level up would put them, I think it's the Women's Championship. And that means then that they potentially, and I haven't looked at the teams, I'll be honest with you, but I think potentially if they can go up a league, then that's going to open them up to being not so regionalized in terms of the teams that they play. So we could see them coming further south. So would you want to go and see the women play if they were down this way? Is that something that you've got on your radar at all?
Yeah, I'd love to. Absolutely love to. For me, I'm loving the fact they get to play at the City Ground at the moment. I think that's absolutely brilliant. And I'm really impressed that the infrastructure that's been put in place is as good as a championship side and actually probably as good as the bottom ends of the WSL of what they're building. And it's the Marinakis way. It's okay, what do you need for now, but what do you need for the future? And I'll give you what you need for the future now so that we can supercharge your way up the league. So it's all good things. It's great games. They do have to grind out a few results, but other than that, they're banging in goals left, right, and centre. The quality of the team is absolutely fantastic. And they're not going to just make up the numbers. And I'm going to say when, not if, they go up at the end of this season.
I've just pulled the league up actually, and there's London City, which clearly is a London team. There's Southampton, which isn't far. For Charlton. I'm looking at Southern teams, listeners, because I live in London, and it's not that I won't make the effort to go to the City Ground to see the women play, but logistically, it's not always the easiest thing to do. But if there was a game locally, then I'm 100% looking forward to going to that. I mean, Dan, do you pay much attention to the women's game at all, or are your focus purely on the men's side?
It is mostly on the men's side. I find I spend enough time with my spreadsheet on the men's team that I can't squeeze in too much attention on the women's team. But I mean, I know they're undefeated so far this season, aren't they? So that's like, as long as they keep that up, then they've got a good chance of promotion. It's never going to be easy, and I think it's all about momentum, isn't it? That momentum of the interest building in the team, momentum from the ownership, keeping the investment and the funding going, and that keeping to attract the players. So it's one of those where hopefully their success kind of is also boosting alongside the first team success, and the two things are just going to keep kind of contributing to a little bit more confidence in either side of it. And it's always great, when they do the social media videos now, that they include players from the women's team as well, and you can kind of see that relationships there. Like Yatesy will be talking and chatting in the background to them and stuff, and that looks that's great to see.
Absolutely, we champion the women's team. It's not something that I in the past have paid a lot of attention to. So I'm freely admitting that it's new for me, and I'm genuinely looking out for their results and genuinely thinking, how have our girls got on, and wanting them to do well. And there's names in that team now that I know as much as almost the men's. That I'm getting to know the players. So it's a brilliant thing, and it makes the club, I think, a better club. We're just about out of time, but Richard, you wanted to read us this one for Men's Mental Health Month. So I've been through it a past couple of episodes. I think Richard's going to read this one out for us just so we can keep highlighting it.
Yeah, again, continuing to focus on Men's Mental Health Month, which is November 1st to the 30th, obviously. So for those who are listening, November is Men's Mental Health Month. We want to remind every male, not just today, your life matters. Even when things feel hopeless and dark, don't give up. You've come this far for a reason. You have the strength to get through any inner battle you're facing. And remember, you are never alone. You have a purpose, and people who know you love you, even when your brain tells you otherwise. So it's critical, as Greg alluded to, that we all keep this in the forefront of our mind, because there's plenty of people around us that maybe silently are dealing with battles that they're the only ones aware of, and they just don't feel like they have an outlet. Well, we're an outlet. I don't want to speak for Raf, but I'm pretty confident Raf and Dan and anyone else on here, and any other contributors, even to other podcasts, are more than willing to take DMs if you need help, and more than willing to listen and to be a participant in helping you deal with some of these challenges. So appreciate that, Greg, bringing that up, and don't want to forget this ever.
Yeah, thank you.
You're not alone. Like we've all, I'm not speaking for everyone. We've all had our own massive challenges, and really dark times. And honestly, being able to share and the experiences that we've had to show the fact you're not alone and there is a way out. You can go from really dark times, and there is a way out. There is light. Even if you can't see where the light is, hopefully someone can help direct you towards where that light actually is.
Yeah, well said. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Okay, we're out of time. So thank you so much for joining us in the comments and for listening along. Danscape, final thoughts before we go?
Looking forward to the lucky shirt kicking in again this game.
For those watching or not watching, Dan's sporting this season's Manchester City coloured third shirt, which we've not lost in. I think we're assuming we're wearing that tomorrow, so hopefully we will wear that tomorrow. Raf, how are you for final thoughts?
Yeah, good. Fingers crossed. I love doing one over on the Arsenal, and if we can just take the mantra of a 1-0 to the Forest from the old days of the Arsenal, I will quite happily sport that for the next couple of years.
Excellent. Richard, you're all suited and booted, dressed in Oklahoma. It's about 5:25 in the morning over there. So he's been up, ready for work. He's got a meeting at 6:30, guys. I mean, he's talking dedication. Richard, you are, as ever, a superstar. So final thoughts from you?
Another dad moment to call out. So my daughter, who probably drives us all crazy by singing perpetually every single minute of the day that she can, actually made it through the first round of all-state choirs. So she's in amongst, a select few that are advancing to that, where she'll be able to perform on a state level, which, granted, Oklahoma doesn't have a ton of people in it, but she's really proud of that. And so, yeah, there you go. That's about what it sounds like, too, on a daily basis. So she's got an incredible voice, and she loves to sing, and she's really passionate about it. So I'm very proud of her.
That's Sophie, isn't it?
Adelaide, by the way.
Oh, Adelaide, I beg your pardon. It's Adelaide, sorry.
Yeah.
Richard's got enough kids to get a 7-a-side team going. Right. And from me, I want to say good luck to Matt Davis and the guys over at Forest Focus. They are at the Football Content Awards tonight, nominated in the Best New Content Creator category and also the Best Premier League Podcast category. They would be worthy winners in either. Our love for them and our support for them is unending. And so we wish them good luck, and they would be really worthy winners. And who knows, in the future, maybe Talking Reds might pick up a nomination along the way as well, for craziest sound effects and for oddest segments and stuff like that. Go and check out the one with Mark Dennison. The Forest Stadium announcer joined us earlier in the week for an episode, and he took us through the ins and outs of his role announcing at pitchside at the City Ground. It's a really good watch, and we thank Mark again for joining us. But this has been the Arsenal v Nottingham Forest match preview. Come on, you Reds. It's going to be a win for the mighty Forest. I'm sure of it. So hopefully when we come back on Sunday evening, we will be talking about a win for Nottingham Forest. But if you don't join us then, hopefully we'll see you soon.